Thank you so much. I mean, what a day. I don't know if I'm here to share or I've learned so much. So I'm Roxanne Neilson. Our office is at 48 Wall Street. Since the pandemic, we've been working a lot remotely. But I can't tell you, I'm so impressed. Thank you so much. One, I've learned from the beginning of walking in the building, thanks to the Seminole Nation, for this beautiful facility that I've never been to before. Had no idea that the Seminole Nations own all and operate all of the Hard Rock hotels. So now I know where I want to site all my future events. Thanks to Yvette, thank you, to the Seminole Nation. Thank you to Yvette Fielder and the Native Edge Institutes for this really interesting day. Thanks to Derek, a watchman, and I learned about the 7th generation and how we're all working for the 7 generations for now. Such an important concept for us to know. To John on the SBA subcontracting, we learned about how important it is to register and how to find your niche. Carla Byland, I don't want to jump out of a plane without a parachute, so I also need to have employee policies, and so I'll never forget that. From Mr. Lowe and his leadership, the strength and the vision and the courage that he talked about and his childhood and coming forward and being so courageous to continue, be a lifelong learner. My friend Carmela, who actually shared that information about the United Nations, which I think is important to know. And I'm from Peter. Always check the bathroom, make sure it's clean. I can't wait for going back to my office to start to really process all the information I learned today. But what I want to share with you is about capital, all right? We registered our businesses. We found a contract. It's an international contract. But now we've got to provide services or goods. We've got to perform. We need access to capital. Capital, and even Mr. Watchman talked about his background in banking. It is a hurdle from whatever nation you come from. But our MBDA, and we're thankful that our sisters and brothers in the MBDA, Native Edge Institutes also has an MBDA, that we all work together. And that we may be based in New York, but we serve everyone in the country, and we're here to serve you. So we're located at 48 Wall Street, but we have our clients are all over the country, and we'd love to serve you no matter where in the nations or wherever in the country you're from. So our MBDA is operated by the Business Outreach Center Network, which is located in Brooklyn. It's a not-for-profit. Been serving and led by Nancy Karen, who's our executive director, who is, luckily, I work for an organization where I'm not the oldest one. So I love my organization, the Business Outreach Network and Bach Capital, and as you can see on the screen, we have a lot of services that we provide to refugee communities and all kinds of women's programs. At Bach Capital, which is a CDFI, Community Development Finance Institution. We're so fortunate to have that under the umbrella. So I always say that Bach Capital is like the umbrella, and our leader, our old lady at the top, Nancy Karen. So this organization is a Migrant Enterprise small business organization. It is entrepreneurial in itself. It's a nonprofit, and it's grown from doing small businesses to, as I said, all those other programs. But capital can make the difference. It's the infusion of capital that often is a barrier to not only doing business in your own community, but then if you're going to do business outside of your community, how do we finance, how do we access the capital? And as a business owner myself and our family, I can tell you that our journey many years ago, we had a wonderful idea for a business. We thought it was a great idea. We did the pro formas. We worked out the plan. We understood the demographics. We knew who we were going to serve. And so we thought we were ready to go. We purchased some and acquired some land, and we thought we were going to build. We're builders. I don't look like it today, but I'm, by training, a carpenter and a welder. So we were building it ourselves. But none of the banks wanted to finance it. And I can't tell you how many banks we went to with this wonderful idea, totally spelled out on paper, all the numbers crunched. Market was there, but banks were unwilling. It was a new kind of business. They were unsure. Even the SBA didn't have a vehicle to finance it. We did not know what we did not know. So I bring to this work not only the experience of working for an economic development organization, but also that personal experience of family business, of many generations of family businesses and people who make things with their hands and sell them in order to feed the kids. So I can tell you honestly that business now is a self-storage business. Everybody heard about it after storage wars, but we were building ours before that even happened. So bankers looked at us and said, you want to build storage, retail storage? What is that? SBA even never financed that kind of business, they told us, and we don't understand the business, and it sounds good, but we can't help you. So CDFIs, Community Development Finance Institutions, were developed because the large banks couldn't properly serve the minority community and other communities. In fact, historically had intentionally not provided lending to underserved communities. And so the CDFI is based on legislation to provide opportunities and inroads to capital for communities that haven't been served before. Even Native American communities have CDFIs, and I suggest you really look and contact us, or MBDAs, to find the CDFIs that serve your region or your area. They're alternative lending sources. So ours, Bach Capital Corp., we serve New York region, and now we're growing to serve outside of New York region, New Jersey, but we collaborate with other CDFIs so we can help you prepare and get ready for capital. So founded in 2001, the Bach Capital Corp., we're dedicated to financing small business owners, special focus on women, minorities, and immigrants. And I can tell you a story. When I first came to Bach Network, I had come from doing major projects, Tappan Zee Bridge, DBE, a lot of compliance work. So my new boss, Nancy Karen, she said, Roxanne, I want you to come to a Bach Capital meeting. And I said, oh, but I'm working with MBDA. She said, no, you work for Bach Network, come to we're going to do a lending, we're having a meeting about a potential loan, and we'd like you to sit in. So I said, wow, I've been to a lot of banks. So I dressed up properly for a bank meeting. I go to our office in Brooklyn, which basically looks like a church office or a small, nonprofit. And around the table, everybody looks like this room. And as the first time I've been into a lending situation, I actually had worked for Chase Bank in design and construction in Lower Manhattan, CMP 1 and 2. But I had never been around a table with bankers that looked like me. So I sat there, I'm ready to take notes, and they handed out the the loan package. But it wasn't very many pages. Loan packages that I had prepared had 200-page pro forma that I wrote, all kinds of information about myself, my husband, everything, kids, Social Security numbers, every kind of document. Well, sir, 3-4 pages. This is a loan to a refugee. It was the business owner wanted to buy a used vehicle and ship it abroad. So we looked through the package. There wasn't really much there. And Nancy Karen, my executive director, she said, okay, Roxanne, you're up first. Do you think we should lend to this person? And I was like, is this a trick question? Because am I missing part of the package? It's only 3 pages. I said, and I wasn't sure how to answer that because I'm new. And I said, well, based on these documents, I think there's more information needed. I don't even see a form of ID that, how do you know that this is going to work? How do you know you're going to get your money back? And she said, Roxanne, I have to tell you, we've been doing this for quite some time. These kind of borrowers are better at paying us back than almost any other that we lend to. And that was my first lesson. A CDFI is different. I'm not saying they don't have any underwriting, because there's an external underwriter that has to, you have to pass the bar on certain things as a traditional borrower. But the CDFI, based on their charter and their mission, that's how they lend. And so that's why it's important for our communities to really understand capital. Yes, there are different sources of capital. There are different programs. But we should be, as counselors, as business counselors, as many of you are here, and I know online, maybe small businesses and business counselors, we need to educate ourselves about the world of banking that includes the SBA loans, the traditional brick and mortar banks, there's e-banks, but there's also the CDFI. And their mission is to help. So the lending philosophy of our capital is holistic in nature. We take into consideration the entire business and the management team when evaluating your application. And our process for applying for a loan is really very different, as I explained, from a traditional bank. So as a nonprofit organization and a CDFI, the mission is to help entrepreneurs grow through well-placed capital and thoughtful technical assistance. Now, the example I gave you is obviously extreme, but that is actually a true story. I also see a lot of businesses who come to us and just don't have the capacity yet to take on capital. So we're here to help, and CDFIs, part of the mission, part of the program, is to provide that technical assistance that borrowers need in order to get ready to take on capital. So now let's talk about the loan products that we have. There are lots of different products. The products change based on funding that we receive, or we do get funding from some of the traditional banks that provide funding to us to lend to the small business community. So it's important for you to know that. Our products are different than any other CDFI. However, it's worth it as a business owner, no matter your size, to investigate the CDFIs in your community. So we have short-term loans with $500 to $5,000 repayment 1 year. We also do some community lending through SBA. We have an interesting product, interest-free halal for the Muslim community. And the ones that I'm most familiar with, because my experience and my background is in construction and development, we work with a lot of construction companies and suppliers, contract-based loans. So in New York, for example, we have the Contract Finance Loan Fund. This is a specific fund for anyone in the country. Any of you come to New York, and I hope you join my MBDA in Manhattan, because we want to help you do business with the city of New York. If you are so lucky as to put yourself together to get a contract, for example, with MTA, right? Perhaps you're a supplier. Perhaps you're a fabricator of metal inserts, and those metal inserts are embedded in concrete. And you get a big contract to do some embedded inserts and stairs that it's going to be put in all the subway in New York City. It's great. You could be from anywhere doing that. You get that contract, now what are you going to do? Big order, right? So you're going to come and say, Roxanne, that's that girl who said that they have all kind of strange lending. Well, yes. You're going to come to me, and we're going to look at that contract. Before you get the contract, you're going to say, I'm interested in bidding on work in New York. And then we're going to start the process. Because we're a nonprofit, you pull back the curtain, there's like 3 or 4 people working on all of these products, all these loans. And that means we're slow. We don't have the team that, some of these larger banks have, It's just us. So we have to do all of that paperwork, with you. And it takes a long time for us to move through from receiving your paperwork to, at the end of the day, getting the loan. So you cannot start and come to me when the loan is, when the contract is already executed. It's late. We're never going to be able to fund you that quickly. So the key is that, when you're thinking, and I hope all of you are thinking about doing business here in New York and downstate in New York City, you're going to come to me and say, I'm thinking about doing business with the city of New York. And I'm interested in that. If I do get a contract and I can't manage, the upfront capital, that you're going to help me with the contract finance loan fund. And I'm going to say, yeah. We also have, for people who are based in our region, the Entrepreneurs of Color Fund. Whoever knew that there was something like that, right? It's just for our communities. And it's the Entrepreneurs of Color Fund. It is a traditional kind of like loan process, but I'm going to give you some tips on what you have to do to get ready to take on capital. So now you have an idea that you're going to do business as a supplier or trade contractor with the city of New York or the state. First thing we're going to say is you're going to need help if you don't have organized files. So you're going to engage with us early, because we're going to do that one-on-one business counseling with you. We're going to take a look at your tax return. And if you don't have a tax return, right, you're not ready to take on capital, right? Because those are some of the basis of determining whether or not you can take on capital. We're going to do that credit counseling. We're going to help you by pulling a credit, because it's not just your business credit, it's your personal. But we're not afraid. I have seen, my hair is gray, right? I have seen some credit that just looks terrible, but you know what? It's a process. I can tell you that with our own business, right? It took, embarrassingly, 14 years to be an overnight success. 14 years of eating rice and beans, although we eat rice and beans now too, anyway. It took a lot of sacrifice to be able to get to the point to say that now we have 500 customers, okay? But we didn't start there. It was a very long-winded process, so don't be impatient. Develop your loan request. What are you using the capital for? A contract is a great reason to come to say, I'm seeking a contract. Now, I know I'm going to need capital. Or I need to bring on now employees. That was a great presentation by Carla Byland. I'm going to have to grow to 10 employees. I'm going to have to grow to 5 employees, or I'm going to have to hire my first employee outside of my brothers, sisters, cousins. I'm going to need capital in order to make sure I can do that. And so that's a great conversation to have with us. And if you're a startup, we're not afraid. We work with even startups. So this is a sample list, And if many of you have already been to the bank, we have at our MBDA, I have MBDA minority-owned businesses that do $50 million a year, that have 100 people in the field today, union, okay? But we also have the business owner who is starting the business for the first time, that has a pickup truck, and that pickup truck is failing them and they need to buy a new truck. And we have on my desk today a business owner who has a great contract, but his boat is shot. You know, so don't feel as if you are, that your case is so unique. You know, your banker is like, knows more about you sometimes than your spouse. You have to really, it is a real leap of faith to go into that transaction, because you do have to divulge your fears, your paperwork, the actual revenue that you have, and the losses. So we look at all of that. We are sworn to secrecy. We have fiduciary. So we are your confidant. We are your, and in many ways, we know more, again, about your business than your spouse or your children do. That was short and sweet, right? The lessons I learned today, as I said when I started, are more than what I've given you. So I fully expect the community to come to me and get what else is due, and it's free of service. We do not charge for our services because our services are paid for by the federal government, and we're here to help you. And we're so humbled by the presentations today. We are really, I'm very interested in coming back, and I can't wait to hear the next presentation. Thank you so much. That's it.